my premieres soon first, but our premiere episode for the Taboo Table. Okay, and so what have we brought to the table today?
So today we're bringing chronic illness in the Black family because we feel like this is a subject that's very important to us. I mean, we've lived with chronic illness our whole life, and it only makes sense for that to be our first episode.
I think it's important that we have this place where people can speak about this, because for people like myself and for you, actually, we've never been in a place where we've been comfortable talking about our condition.
Right.
And it's only when we've gone to look for people like our guests that we've now been able to openly speak about it.
Yeah.
So can you please introduce who you brought to the table today?
So, Chris. I decided to bring Chris.
Okay.
Because one day he popped up on my screen, BBC, and I was like, who's this guy? And he was like, talking about sickle cell.
Okay.
And what led me to him is just that, you know, he started his own company, the Sounds of Sickle Cell, and I joined it, and it's where I've met the most people with sickle cell, and it's just like a group that you can talk about anything related to sickle cell. You know, he throws events, and would you like to introduce yourself, Chris?
Yo, I'll show. No, no guys, my name's Chris. I'm founder of Sounds of Sickle. I mean, that's it. Like, you have the group
and
you're fly, and you like to dress and everything else.
I mean, this is just part of the business look, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
On a normal day, man, see me just wearing a couple of tracks. You going to spend? No, I'm joking. But no, outside of actual work and stuff like that, TSS is my passion. I think creating awareness and creating conversations are a big thing that we want to do as a team and across sickle cell. It's obviously a silent disorder, and that's because we won't speak about it. And I think with that in mind, the aim is to then create a resounding sound, hence the sound of sickle.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I like it.
You see what I did there? My name's Chris, and I suffer from sickle cell. Sickle cell is a chronic blood disorder that is inherited from both parents who have the sickle cell trait gene. It affects your red blood cells, and they're no longer a full donut shape like most blood cells, but they are a sickle shape. This causes them to clot when they go through small veins in the body, and especially at joints. This can cause long-term pain for people, and bouts of pain called crisis, and also lead to long-term kidney failure and organ damage.
Okay, so I'm bringing on Jameisha. I found Jameisha on YouTube actually, and I think I've said this before, like it was in my most vulnerable moment.
Yeah.
And I was so desperate to just kind of find another black girl that had a condition that initially I was diagnosed with lupus because they had no clue. So I was actually looking for somebody who could mirror and show me what my condition was going to do to me, and you know, have me be like.
Right.
So I was frantically like looking for answers on the internet, and I came across Jameisha, and I just really loved the approach she had in terms of she touched on everything, things that I was experiencing already and things that I experience now, you know, and I just thought, you know what, this is something that I need.
Yeah.
She's built a network on Instagram, social media, where I see like a lot of people engage in what she does, and it's just so helpful to have Cam. When you're going through something as isolating as, you know, a chronic condition, it's like your world starts all over again once you find people that can actually relate to what you're doing. So I'm so happy that you turned up, Jameisha. Honestly, like, I'm happy that you're both here. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, that wasn't that great. I
did it all.
My name is Jameisha, so I was diagnosed with lupus, a few other things, but I usually talk about lupus. And after that, I started a platform called YouLookOkayToMe. I went to uni for film and then realised I had to readjust that a little bit because film is quite physical and hard to do. So then with the platform, I usually make video content, sometimes audio content, talks about chronic illness, but also like the other stuff that comes with it, the social stuff, the cultural stuff. It's not always about the symptoms, it is, but then sometimes it's about losing friends or doctors not believing you or your family not listening. Those other things are just as important. Exactly. So those things are just as important. So it should take like a very chill approach to talking about it and providing a space where we all can just be like honest and transparent, because it's hard to do sometimes. It's quite intimidating. So
100%.
Absolutely.
I agree.
Hi, my name is Jameisha Prescod and I'm currently living with lupus. Lupus is an autoimmune disease that affects the whole body. So essentially your immune system is supposed to look after you, supposed to fight off viruses and bacteria, but instead it fights your own body. So it causes joint pain, muscle aches, fatigue, cognitive dysfunction, so like a bad memory or trouble spelling, and many other symptoms like that.
I think for me, what was most important about bringing you guys specifically is because there is no phase to chronic illness.
No.
And I think the thing that we want to try and convey in our show is to let people who are dealing with what we're dealing with, that you can have a condition and still live your life.
Yeah.
We can very, very much, we don't look like what we're going through. Like you say, you look okay to me because that's what we get a lot of the time.
Yeah.
When you have a chronic condition,
I was like that name,
it was so
hits
fitting. Do you understand? And so I think it's, again, like, it's important that we represent not just, you know, the face of our condition, but also like black people.
Yeah.
Because without people like you two, people like me would be very isolated.
Yeah.
In my condition. So like I said, I'm just really, really thankful that you guys have taken the time out to come on this show and to spread awareness and to give people hope.
Well, thank you.
So, we're going to just dive right into it. The topic for today is really in regards to chronic illness within the black family specifically.
We usually start with a question.
Okay.
And we want to know, what are you guys known for in your family?
As in like generally? Like,
Generally.
So what are you known for in your family? Like,
I'm known as the bougie one.
Oh, you're bougie?
No.
I couldn't tell.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's what I am, but that's what people call me.
But that's what
like.
they, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the label that we give me in terms of like high maintenance. Like, I have a lifestyle that I want to live and I try to keep it as best as I can.
That's the energy I'm
Hallelujah.
I try to live it. So.
Yes, I could just tell by your fashion and
yeah.
I got me a study, you got, you know.
I mean, I've got the
I see,
damage.
I
I mean,
see.
it's like, I feel like with my family, they see me as, like, obviously it's great that I've gone through uni and done obviously the standard route, which most African parents want you to go through anyway,
Yeah.
so I've achieved that. But then being able to kind of maintain some form of individualism throughout it
It's
as well. I think,
important, yeah.
and I think
Absolutely.
my family, especially kind of like my age mates, my cousins, kind of like see that as a bit more of like a, you know what, fair enough, like he's been true to himself.
You've got
Yeah.
your identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is important.
That's amazing. What about you, Jameisha? What are you known for?
I'm glad you got the first I would say I'm known as like the mediator. I'm the middle child. There's 5 of us, and everybody like comes to me for something. Everyone's cussing each other to me. So it's usually if my mum and dad have an argument, my mum comes to see what your dad did.
Yeah.
My dad comes to see what your mum did, or my brother and sister will moan
Are you
about
the
something.
bearer?
Yeah, I am, and usually I'm sitting there like.
Yeah, the therapist of the family.
Because I can see it, because when you speak, it's kind of like very like...
It's so
kind of
soothing.
I
That's
can
why
watch her and, you know,
I can just listen.
that's when I've done my meditation, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
So
I can
you
listen
can
to
see my
Jameisha.
fingers.
Yeah, listen, she talks very much.
Zen.
She whole class,
She's
like,
all
it's very
zen down.
zen, it's very
Honestly,
nice.
like,
She doesn't feel said internally, but
No.
you know what? There's so much noise going on. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to
Yeah,
just wanna like
calm
down.
bring it in, but I also do everyone's applications for them as well. I'm that person, so like when people are applying for something, I'm like, yeah, but you should change that sentence.
Do you need a
Not
sibling?
good.
Huh?
So do you need a sibling?
I mean,
One.
she's got 5, there's 5 of her.
how much you're charging is the real question right now. We can make money.
This is true.
This is true.
But I have to reiterate that it's not 5 siblings, so it's 5 in my family.
Oh,
So
5,
okay.
okay,
It's 5,
5,
like,
okay.
I've got 2 siblings and
Okay.
2 parents, it's
Yeah.
5, and then it just feels
Oh.
like, you know, 5 on the
There's
dice.
3 of them.
3, okay.
She's the middle child of the baby
Or the middle.
girl.
But that's the middle child's role,
That's
isn't
the
it?
middle
Stop right there because that's a whole nother episode.
Middle child to never be so time.
Yeah.
I think I'm known for the black sheep. I'm definitely the
We
black
definitely
sheep.
the black sheep. We're the oldest. We're the black
You're
sheep.
the oldest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What are you, where do you fall?
I'm the only child, bro. I'm
Oh!
out here living life, living large.
What do we
I'm
call that? What do we
pioneer.
call the only child?
Only child syndrome?
Yeah, there's only child syndrome
It
apparently.
definitely is.
Only child syndrome apparently like to be centre of attention, blah 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 blah.
You do.
And
Do
you?
they don't take well to socialising with people that
Yeah.
well.
That's why he's got his.
You don't
son.
But I think you don't seem like that. You seem very.
I mean, I've just been today, but like,
I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So let's get back to it. So we want to talk about why the subject of chronic illness, invisible illness, is such a taboo within the Black family. What has been your experience being ill and being Black and being in a family that may or may not
So
understand what you're going through?
when you got your diagnosis, like how did your family take it and how long ago was that?
I'd say like maybe the first thing I would say is just there's just a lot of silence around illness in general.
Yeah.
I got diagnosed in 2014,
Yeah.
but the diagnosis process was quite long. Prior to that, I had symptoms, but kind of I was just seen as lazy, or even though I was a hardworking like student, it don't
Yeah.
matter if you're sleeping more than you're supposed to. It's like why are you not getting up to clean the house and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, guys, I'm so tired. Like no idea.
Yeah.
And then after diagnosis, it kind of, my mum was there on the journey with me, so she
Yeah.
speaks about it sometimes. But then when she sees me in a flare, she goes in another room. She don't want to look at me when I'm ill because she can't take
She
it.
can't
So
take
she
it,
don't like
yeah.
really, when the flare up is there, she don't like talking about it.
Yeah.
My dad didn't really talk about it. And then I started finding out that after I got diagnosed, I had 2 family members that sadly had passed away from the same disease, and I had no idea because no one spoke
No
about
one
it.
spoke about it,
An
yeah.
uncle of mine, only after my diagnosis started opening up that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, I didn't know that either. And so like part of why he has like a bad heart was because he was going through chemo, which I found out a lot later, but only now he started to say, oh, my fatigue is like this,
Yeah.
and he's in his 50s. And so I just found that after my diagnosis and me starting to talk more,
Yeah.
that there was just this silence on many different kinds of conditions
Yeah.
in the whole family that many people were living with, that they just got on with it and no one wanted to speak, which I found
yeah.
quite sad because why, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And it's not something you can help, so.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I think that's the general attitude around the Black community, is that illness is not something that they want to talk about. I'm not too sure what it is. Do we think it's shame?
I don't know. So I feel like you said it right. It's just that, you know, there's this idea of you just get on with it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, you know what I mean, like everyone's going through this and that, and just because you're ill and that doesn't make you anything else, you just persevere, you go on and you just deal with it. I think part of it comes from in terms of the generations, like in terms of like a lot of our parents' generations were like first time, like obviously in the UK, and so like they had a different idea and mentality and mindset in terms of this is, I've got to make do, I've just kind of got to survive.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas now it's like, you've survived, we are able to thrive now.
Mm.
So for me to
Right,
thrive,
right.
I've got to have these discussions.
Have a life.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then we end up having challenging conversations with the family. I think that's what I've done, is that because I grew up, my mum was like, you have sickle cell, but you don't have sickle cell. God will
Yeah.
do it.
God would, yeah.
Pray it away. And I
Yeah.
kind of like there's religious aspects
Yeah.
that come from obviously first time settlers, that
Yeah.
come from cultural all the way through. And I think that obviously conflicts with you as an individual, kind of what you're going through. It's like, well, yes, I pray, yes, I believe God, yes, I'm praying, yes, I'm doing it, like, you know, everything
Yeah.
religiously possible. But in the now, this is how I feel right now,
Yeah.
and I need the medical help that's
Help.
actually
Right.
going to help me. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not saying I'm going to discredit anyone's original belief, but it's the here and now that I'm dealing with, and
Yeah.
faith is something that you obviously you hold as a long term, so to
That's
speak.
different.
Yeah, but right here and now, I need my penicillin, my folic acid, my painkillers, whatever I need to take at
And
that
I
point
think
in
that's
time.
something that's like cultural in Black families as well. I mean, like, you know, most Black families are really religious.
Mm.
And I feel like you said, we like to pray away things instead of dealing with things head on. Like I've been told before, like, oh, are you sure you're praying enough? Because if you're praying enough, you shouldn't be this sick. And I was like, I don't think that's how it goes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm in pain.
That brings a lot of guilt that you shouldn't be carrying.
does.
It brings a lot of guilt.
It
It did. And like my family, we didn't, I didn't know, I knew I had something. I knew I was different in primary school, secondary school. I mean, I was diagnosed from birth, but I didn't know what it was. Probably I didn't know it was sickle cell till later on, like probably end of secondary school.
For you two, it's obviously with me and Jameisha, our conditions are something that became apparent
Right.
later on in life. But where with sickle cell, it's in you
From
from birth. So when does your parent or your family let you know that, hey, life might be a little bit difficult for you, you might hurt yourself, you might find yourself struggling, like when do your family sit you down and say, this is your life?
I mean, for me, I was never sat down. And I mean, I've spoken to other people with sickle cell, and you know, they probably have like a sit down with their mum tells them they can't do this, they can't do this, they can't play with other kids too much outside, or you know, nursery they'll probably stay inside while the other kids play outside. But my mum's very much, you're normal, you're not doing that. Yeah, I had swimming lessons, you know, and with sickle cell, with sickle cell, you know, you can't have swimming lessons because you know you get a crisis when it's cold. PE, I couldn't have been doing PE and gymnastics and flying. I shouldn't be doing it because it wasn't good for my health. So no, I didn't have that sit down. What that sit down would have done is prepared me for the bullying I faced, or prepared me for like, okay, your eyes are yellow because it's jaundice, or your eyes are this because you have this and you're different. But I just went into life blindsided, like someone had to tell me your eyes are yellow. Someone had to tell me you. I mean, I remember having outpatients appointments, but I still didn't know it was sickle cell. So even when I was having a crisis, mentally I wasn't prepared. I was just like, I'm in so much pain. I couldn't just voice out the pain I was in. And yeah, how do you think it was for you?
Very similar in terms of my mum's, and probably kind of why I'm going to. She's very defiant in the sense of like, nah, you don't have that. Yeah, you better have that. It's kind of like.
But isn't it from your parents? Let me just understand.
Yeah, it's inherent. Yes, so like obviously sickle cell trait will then obviously increase likelihood of someone with sickle cell being born, sickle cell with sickle cell trait.
So why are the people that know they gave it to you so
adamant?
But do they know?
If you're diagnosed with that at birth, then
you definitely
would know.
But I mean, if your parents are carrying the trait, were they aware, for example? Because some parents.
So some parents, the ignorance behind it, like no, they didn't know. They didn't know they had AS. It's probably when sometimes they're pregnant, and probably during pregnancy they're like, you know, your child's gonna have sickle cell because the dad, you know, the blood of the mum and dad are AS. And yeah, like you said, is it shame? I feel sometimes because you feel to yourself, this, I've caused my child this, or this is what I've given onto my child, that might be where the shame comes from, you know, or the overprotectiveness comes from, is because probably does come from a place of guilt from their part. So I feel like it's rather, because they're guilty about it, let's brush it to the side, you are fine, in Jesus' name, or you are this. But I think that's where it comes from, guilt.
And
my mum, when so I've had the conversation with her more recently in terms of now that I'm old enough and like understand the world, so to speak, in the sense of, so when I was born with sickle cell, like what was going on there, like we've had the fight in terms of this is your fault, I'm this because of you, and obviously that's the confrontation. Obviously it happened, sometimes doesn't happen, but it happened with me, and it was kind of a big blowout in the sense that mum was like, no, it wasn't intentional, no, it wasn't planned, it was your dad didn't tell me that he had sickle cell trait. So my mum knew she had trait, and she's known of sickle cell, but it was kind of like, back then it wasn't like go get tested. The same way to some degree now, it's not that. It's not a forward-facing conversation. Especially back in Nigeria, it's well, but especially back in Nigeria, it's a taboo conversation. Like if you have sickle cell, then you like essentially are like it's a black mark against your name, so you're brave enough. So with that in mind, obviously, mum kind of had the idea, knew about it, and then speaking about it now, she's like, well, that's unfortunately has happened. So my mindset of that was to now just kind of instill a stable and sturdy mindset into you, which obviously, from a parent's point of view, they feel like they're doing the right thing. But when, like you said, when you're younger, you're not prepared for the mental side of that. The mental side of things is probably the biggest test for me and a lot of people with sickle cell when they're younger, because you know you're different, you feel internally different, but you don't know why. You don't know how. It's just like you have to do this separately, you have to do that separately, or these people are doing cross country and they're running 20 minutes flat, and you're like, dude, give me 3 minutes.
It's like being in a fight. It's like someone blowing you left, right, front, center, and you can't see. You don't know why this is happening. You don't know why you're getting punches. You don't know what you're confused. And I thought that like he said, the mental part of it and dealing with that mentally, I'd probably say it's probably it's harder than the physical.
I think that's a lot. Like my personal experience when I was going through secondary school, had no one speak to about sickle cell and flare-ups and crisis. So I was in and out of hospital every 2 months, every month. So I missed the last chunk of my year 11 GCSEs and all of my year 10 GCSEs because I was in hospital. So that kind of mindset that if I knew beforehand that actually I should just deal with sickle cell and that I've got it and nothing's going to change,
and
then
you would have navigated your life a bit differently because you've been given the opportunity to, create your life based on the knowledge that you know. It's one thing being in the dark and just going about life, but once you you have knowledge about something, you can kind of, you know, create a life around that.
Even the mental fogginess with dealing with a chronic illness, like you need that extra support in school.
Right.
To do exams, to do
But had they
GCSEs, to
ever
do
known,
A-levels.
they could
So
have afforded you that
I
support.
thought that would have just helped so much.
The same way dyslexic people would get the extra
Get help.
time.
If you have ADHD, they see
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
extra assistance, but with sickle cell, it's like, you're
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah, like most chronic illness is invisible
Yeah,
illness.
invisible
Like,
illness.
like, as long as I can't physically see it, it doesn't
It doesn't
exist.
exist.
And that's
Yeah.
to anybody else, but to you, like still must go for it. It's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
this is my life. This is me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that is a lot. And I think I don't know how parents and families, especially when we're younger, going through deal with that kind of
Yeah.
conversation. Like even now, I think right now as a parent, like how do I navigate that with potential children or future?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah,
a situation.
it's a big one, yeah.
It's a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, I've got a son, my son's 8 now. I wasn't sick before he was born, I got sick after. So all of a sudden, by the time that I found out that I was sick, I was probably like at the best point in my life. I had my business, it was thriving, I had clients, like I was working for myself, I was able to like move around and do all sorts for my child. And then as this illness slowly started eating me away, I became smaller and smaller. I had to shut down my business, I had to kind of stay at home, have no job. It hit me so suddenly. I know that the illness, I know now that it had been there for like a year. But before I was formally diagnosed, I was suffering in so many ways. And I had so many different reasons why I was suffering. And the job I was in was quite laborious. So I thought it was that. I was tired, I was getting called lazy, I was getting, you know, tossed left, right and centre. So like now that I've got a child and it's been, what, 3 years since diagnosis, so much has had to happen. I've been like a guinea pig. One, with the medications, I've cowered like in my room in the corner because I don't want my child to see me in pain. I'll just tell him, you know, sit in the living room, I'm going to be in my room. But it's because I'm suffering, because the medication is literally trying to rip my stomach into pieces. And it's extremely difficult. I know that you guys will see, this is from birth, but when you've kind of lived a life illness free, and then you wake up one day and you're never okay again. It's such a hard thing to take.
It's a hard transition.
I never knew that I was going to wake up one day and never be
the same.
I never knew that my wrists and my legs were going to give up on me. When it hit me the hardest and I wasn't diagnosed, I couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And I still had to take my child to school, and people were still thinking I was being lazy and things like that. And it's such a mental weight on you. And again, if it wasn't for people like Jameisha and people that have already started speaking about this, I had no clue what was wrong with me. I diagnosed myself before the hospital told me it was RA. They thought I had lupus, and I've got fibromyalgia as well. You know, which is quite common when you have RA, lupus, etc.
They come together.
You can sometimes get them
You
together.
can get them together,
Right,
and again,
symptoms are similar.
yeah,
They cross over.
they cross over a lot. So yeah, it's I mean, it's hard enough when you've kind of been born into something, and so you've got no idea what the other side of life is like without pain, without sickle cell. I think it's equally a struggle when you've lived a normal life, you've gone out with your girls, you've gone into the hills and just got on with life, and then all of a sudden, bam. And I think for me, accepting that I wasn't as strong and able as I was previously was probably the hardest part of getting sick.
They're like two equally difficult like concepts, like you know, growing up with sickle cell and being born with it, and it's like this whole time, and especially a kid, like you know, in school it's hard. And the other side of it is that there is a big bit of grief. So me being diagnosed at how was that, 19? You have grief and loss, because grief is not just about like death, it's loss of many kinds. And the loss of this life that you had before, but also what you thought you were going to have is immense. And I don't think I accepted it for a very long time.
I still struggle with
Still now.
accepting.
So I don't think I fully accepted it. Technically speaking, for example, like I'm not supposed to run. But sometimes I'm like, no, that can't be possible. That can't be possible that for the rest of my life I'm not supposed to run. I'm going to run. And then
bam.
then you learn later, when a flare up comes, it's like, you're not supposed
you know you're supposed to run.
You know what you're not supposed to do, but there are some parts, as you're saying, that I still can't accept yet. So it is a process, and allowing yourself to also just, there's no deadline in this process, and allowing yourself to feel what you feel is important. Because that grief can, like, you know, if you've ever lost someone, that grief stays for a long time, if
lasts
not
forever.
forever.
Yeah.
So the loss of, like, you know, what you used to be able to do potentially, that also can last a very long time. And it doesn't mean...
It's really scary. I thought of knowing that
You as well.
I was quote unquote normal for a large chunk of
Yeah,
my life,
right,
and
that's
suddenly
right,
it's
I
like,
was very defiant. I was very, very defiant. I did everything I could to like just act like everything was okay, and each time I got up, the condition was like bad.
Yeah.
So then it's almost like I had to accept that. And there's a mental thing about accepting that you're sick. It makes your body sick as well. Once you accept that you're sick, it's almost like, oh, okay, the brain's like, okay, so we're good now. So, you know, I'm going to sit your ass here and you're just...
it's like you're finally giving up.
Exactly.
Now
let me do what I'm trying to do to
Yeah.
your body. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a sad kind of existence if, you know, you're allowed to kind of overhaul everything else in your life. But I think once you've kind of educated yourself and you've kind of got the knowledge in front of you, you are able to kind of, you know, work around it. And I have a rebirth. You know, okay, this is me, but this is how I can kind of get past these hurdles.
And I thought it's I mean, it's very important to have that support with your family, because not a lot of people outside even know what sickle cell, lupus or RA is. So when you don't even get that initial support from your family, I just think it's like you're already behind the race.
So hands up if you feel like you've had support from your family.
I've like had to fight for support.
No, if because me, when I got sick and I kind of told my dad and my mum, and I thought they were all going to be around my bed every day. And I thought they was going to come and take my son to school. I thought they was going to come and cook for me. It was just like, what's the cricket noise? How do you make cricket? I've just kind of told you I've got like a lifelong condition and like my legs aren't working. And it was just like, they was just going party, they was living their life. And I was just like, damn, I don't know, as much pain as I'm in, I thought people would be around my bed. I thought people would be come to see me. I thought people would be like, I don't know, was I asking for too much? Is that too much to ask of your family?
I just feel some families don't know how to
Deal.
deal. They don't know how to deal because they're not that they're not emotionally intelligent, but I feel they just...
Yeah, like I'm a keeper. I feel like a lot of, and I would say a lot of like black parents have learnt to detach themselves from their emotions because they feel it makes them to some degree inferior or not able to make the logical decisions
100%.
that need to be made. And then that comes obviously in hindrance in many aspects, and that can come just supporting your child through many things.
Right.
But then when you add on the taboo of the illness on top, it's kind of like, whoa, this is too much. Like, to me, it doesn't exist.
People from outside
I don't want people to know that
to know
you're
my
sick,
business and
exactly.
my kid is sick because you're not sick, you know. And it's like, I am, you know, because back in the day when I was in college, partying, I'm not carrying a jacket in winter, clubbing, raving, whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop, drinking. No, I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't. And if I knew, if I had gotten that support from young, there'll be a lot of things I would have avoided and I wouldn't have done because I would have had that care, that tick in my brain that you can't do this. But because the tick in my brain is like, you are like everyone else, I would be like, I can do that. It doesn't matter. The next day, A&E. You're in hospital.
I think sometimes there is family detachment also because it reminds, I think they're scared as well. I think that it reminds them of their own mortality, but also yours. I think now that they're like, she's got this condition, he's got this condition. I think black families struggle to deal with that kind of fear of losing. And I think some people, and I can be like this sometimes, rather than like have those conversations and like talk through it, it's like, I'm not going to fight. We're just going to keep you're fine. It's so much easier than actually having to unpack that, wow, I'm actually kind of scared of where this will go. I'm scared that maybe your life might get cut short. We don't have these conversations very much. I can speak for myself. I don't. I'm sure that's similar to you. And I think that that's another reason why they kind of get detached from it. And I also think sometimes, in my family personally, I think some family members are supportive. I think it does depend on which ones. But I think they don't know how to actually do it, if that makes sense. So my mum was there when I was getting diagnosed. She was on the whole journey. However, after diagnosis, I think she wasn't sure how to support. So what she was trying to do was, all right, open the curtain and get up. No, like, you need to see the day, have some fresh air. that's not what I need right now.
That's not what I need,
feel
yeah.
like you're pushing me in this
You're
direction
forcing me,
because
yeah.
seeing me in this flare up and like that makes you
Make up
uncomfortable.
stuff.
It
Like,
does
You're
make
trying
me
to-
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It does make, it's not just family, because I've had some of my closest friends, like, I think it's cute that they try and make the effort. So like, oh, listen, tell me what it's about. And then you explain to them, okay, so basically, I'm in pain every single day. Well, every day and every second. And then once you get down to, so I take this medication, and basically you can have seizures from this. You lose your memory, bladder weakness here, fatigue here, and then it's like, then they feel uncomfortable, and now I have to apologize because you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and I'm the one that's dealing with the conditions.
Some friends can't even see
They
me in
can't
hospital.
take it.
They can't take it, and
Yeah.
that's why I say if I had the right support, I wouldn't have done a lot of things because I feel part of my growing up, my mum couldn't see me in that much pain, so she would rather believe I'm not in that much pain. She'd be like, oh, what did you eat? Or it would be like, or it would be like, what? Did you fall down? Or I'm like, no. Like, well, now I'm saying in my head that, it was a crisis, but it would be my fault or something because she's panicking of how much pain I'm in.
Right.
There's got to be enough
So
reason.
when I was in that pain, instead of being proactive and calling an ambulance when I should and taking care of myself when I should, I'd be like, no, you can toughen this up. And it's like, no, that's more dangerous and life-threatening to me
Glad you said dangerous.
than being proactive.
Glad you said
And some
dangerous.
friends can't, they still can't because
there is a danger in our parents not feeling comfortable enough to have these conversations with us.
yeah,
They leave us very, very vulnerable, and they leave us very, very lonely
Yeah.
in a lot of aspects. I know you talked about like the time when you were left with one of your aunties or something.
yeah.
And she didn't know.
So I was in my auntie's care, and she didn't know I had sickle cell. So I was at all no. My mum didn't talk
And that's
about
what I'm saying, because I have a child. If my child goes to your house or your house, I'm
Yeah.
giving you a breakdown of what they're allowed to
what
eat.
they're allowed to eat. Yeah.
What they should do, read,
this is
whatever.
diet,
This is this.
Yeah.
It's their
Not,
medication.
it's not even if they've got a medical problem. That's just
That's
how I
how-
am with my child. Don't let him eat no damn sweets because he's gonna come back to my house.
And suddenly I'm going to be dealing with
Do you
it.
understand? So I'm gonna let you know. So to take your sickle cell child
Yeah.
to another family member and not say if, when,
I think it's
what.
unfair on the
It's
other family
unfair.
members.
It's
I
very
think it's very
unfair.
selfish.
And
But
we
it's
got
also
into it
unfair for the
because
child.
because when I was meant to call the ambulance, she was like,
You was
she was,
having a, you was having
I was
a,
having a crisis, and she was like, ambulance, what are you talking about? Go take paracetamol. And I was like, no. I was like, you don't understand. I need to. I was like, I need to go. I need to go. And then, my hospital was in, King's College, Campbell, and then I was living in Croydon. So I was like, I need to go because even the right, I was like, I can't take this. And she was just, I was more overwhelmed, and she was just like, go sit down. So in the anger, she slapped my face. And because she just thought I was being nuts. And so I left, and then the next
Imagine
day,
being a
we had a
crisis.
conversation.
Bang, on top of
We
it.
had a conversation, she felt so bad. And she was just so upset because she was like, but I don't understand why you're mad. She was like, I've lived with you.
Mhm.
She was like, I lived here, I had my 3 kids at your house, and I didn't know you had sickle cell. And that's what I mean by
The
the lack of
danger.
support, the danger, because
Very much so.
they need to know.
You can't put your
and
child in
yeah,
a position.
and
where-
you put yourself in danger because when
Right.
you're having a crisis, because you've been brought up like that, you're like, no, you tell yourself, no, I'm in pain. We hold it. We already hold
It's
that
fine.
pain.
Yeah.
Deal with it.
And your oxygen is decreasing while all of this happens.
Yeah.
You can get organ damage. It's
a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I feel like that's a lot of what it was. I had a very similar experience in terms of when I lived with my auntie and my uncle. I was in that hospital, and that was down to obviously mental kind of stuff going on with my education, going on with my mum. It was kind of like, it was like an overwhelming, but because my uncle and auntie just kind of like, my job is to make sure you live, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
like just kind of day to day, shelter you, feed you, kind of like what they'll call the basic necessities. Like, that's what they dealt with, and I was like, fine. But then when I was in that hospital, I had gallstones, I had my gallbladder removed in that period. I had, that was my first ever surgery. That's why I missed part of my year 10 and year 11 GCSEs. It was kind of like, they were like, I don't know what's going on, he's just ill, he's always in hospital, he enjoys hospital more than us, there's something wrong with it. And that's what it was. There was that question of why you always ill and why you always in hospital. Do you like go and live at hospital? And that was one that I said, bro, just go and stay there, just go and live
They
there.
said go and live in hospital.
Yeah, because-
because you must enjoy going to hospital.
Yeah.
Every minute you want to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
I get it. I get
And
it.
that to me is kind of like, that was the straw where I then fully went into myself. I'm sick, so I'm not going to speak to anybody about it.
Right.
And obviously going through like all my life, it was like, oh yes, nothing, it's nothing. Oh yeah, I have sickle cell, what's that? Well, I don't know myself, so I don't expect you to know it.
Yeah.
And then you kind of deal with it, and you have this one negative experience that almost shaped a lot of your future.
100%.
You just say, well, I'm not dealing with this anymore, I'm just going to deal with myself. And that's where I started to build up a small degree of resentment to family members. And like me and my mum had a massive fallout. We didn't speak for months because I felt like there was a blatant lack of care around the way I was feeling. Your defiance wasn't the same as my defiance. It was, you don't have it, so no one deals with it. And it was that. Obviously now having a conversation, like obviously when I'm older, I understand to a degree where she was coming from, but I still think it was irresponsible. I think irresponsible that I can deal with it. I felt when I was younger, I hated, like hate's a strong word to use, but I hated myself and parts of my family members because they didn't accept me. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what was going on. It was
they made you feel different outside of your own immediate family, like where you're meant to be the most accepted. It's like you feel different because they're not treating this.
And
like,
this is the thing about the family unit. That's where we're supposed to like gain our power before we go and face the rest.
Before
of
we
the
go
world.
face the rest of the
So
world.
if our family unit is not making us comfortable and able to speak about what's going on in our body, and it's not going to leave any day soon. Then what do we do with ourselves once we leave that door? Do you know what I mean? We have to fight so much. And we talk about NHS and all this other stuff with these conditions. So the family should be like the place where we have no issue discussing what we're going through. If I'm having a flare up, I should to call my mum, but I'm telling you right now, I know we've talked about it's a bit of shame, but I know, because I have a blue badge for parking, whatever else. I've been in a position where my mum's in the car and I want to park close to where we're going, and she'll just be shaking her head because she don't want to see that blue badge because she don't want to have her church friends to see the blue badge. And I'm like, but I don't want to limp 3 miles to the entrance. I'm using this because I need it, not because. And she behaved in a way where I started to feel shame as well. Like a young girl like myself, and South London, you parking at the same spot, and people are looking like who's coming out.
And shame is not a reason for me, a good enough reason to not do anything.
It's not a good reason.
You still have to do something, because this is how, for me, I know people with sickle cell that have died and other chronic illnesses. So I know it's life-threatening, it's serious when you don't get the care you need. And identifying the care you need comes from your family being the first response. Like, okay, you're not well, all right, let's I can go. But because there's not that level of urgency when I was sick, when I was now living by myself in uni, I would now take time until the last straw. So by that time, I'm already hysterical. I'm gone. It's already gone. Whereas doctor will not. Then when I come in, the doctor will be like, "Why didn't you come in? When the pain's like, why didn't you come in 2 days ago?" And I'm like, we'll just be looking at ourselves like, I don't know. I was just there swallowing it. But
I think some of this mentality, then, just as you were saying, like it kind of perpetuates this. Look, there's medical inequality, and that's not just our fault, but I think some cultural reasons are the way that we don't get the care that we need. So it's twofold. It is partly because there is racism in medicine that is just historic. But the other part is that if we are internalizing this concept of we're supposed to be strong, we're supposed to just go on with it, and blah blah blah, and we're not actually identifying when we have conditions. That plus medical racism together, it makes it terrible for us. The concepts of how we can take more pain, like that's on their end, and all this stuff. Sometimes we internalize that.
Sometimes I believe that I have a high pain threshold because my mum said you can deal with pain.
Exactly, that's my family. My mum's like, oh, don't take the medicine they give you, just throw it to the side. Girl, I need.
And that's the thing. And when I did get admitted, and my mum would come with me, she would be like eye watching the doctor, like what are you giving her now? Like what medication are you giving now? And like why then become a guinea pig for these people? And it's like, no, you need this. You need this medication. But
it's quite a common thing as well is that us as black people have our own remedies and spiritual things which are great, and then unfortunately when you have a condition and you have to actually take what they call the white man's medication, you kind of get looked at funny, but it's like I can do both,
I need my hydroxychloroquine.
One doesn't come to the other. I have this idea that one is the only way to do.
So I'm just gonna now ask you, what's like some of the dumbest things people have offered in terms of like substitute for medication and things like that?
Or the dumbest advice
Or
someone's
that's what
given you.
dumbest.
So many though. Like,
There's so many.
Just
I can't just, like you get so many dumb stuff.
Yeah, you're like,
You can tell them, which one is
I
the
would
best?
like the
Which
list.
one is the...
Yeah, like I've learned
Let me
to
see.
block them out. I'm trying to think of something that's just like ridiculous.
Okay,
I'll
I
say...
mean, somebody said I should smoke weed.
I've
So.
heard that. Oh, actually no, the maddest one I got was in hospital. Actually. Okay, so the woman was taking our blood. She was like, oh yeah, you got sickle cell? No, do you should pray? Obviously, I was like, yeah, okay, fine.
Okay, we'll pray. We all pray.
Yeah, I get the prayer one. Yeah,
Yeah,
that doesn't
we'll
offend me anymore. Like that's whatever. She was like, do you know what? I've been seeing one of my pastor's son's cousins do.
Dog, yeah.
And I was just like, I'm interested. She says, what he does is every morning he drinks like avocado. It's the maddest much. It's like avocado, kiwi, water, and lemon juice. I said, you are telling me someone does this? I said, she's like, yeah, but the avocado has great, but avocado is a placebo. It's a flavorless vegetable. It does nothing for anybody. So I said, no, take it down. She said, take it down.
I'm
Take
not
it down.
I'm not gonna lie.
And you know, like, I'm in pain at the time, but I'm thinking.
And she's even, it's the vim that she's even telling you, like she's tasted it herself and she's been cured.
So I'm sure of
So
that.
yeah.
So I'm sure of that. So,
I thought my word probably was a church. The pastor was like,
As another pastor.
you are not believers. You understand? Because if you are a believer, if you really pray, that you will never feel that pain. And so in my head I was thinking, when I have a crisis, I'm coming to this pulpit. And if my pain doesn't go,
it's because you don't have faith.
it's because you pastor. I have to start throwing hands.
Because
So when I heard that, I was like, where you going? I'm like, the sermon is over. Okay, lifted my bag and just things like that, because it's like, how?
Yeah.
How is it possible?
I'd say for me, I'd say the top two, I'll just look at two. I love my grandma, and she says it every time I see her. She goes, "You take your tonic?" Every time, make sure you take your tonic. And I'm like, all right, grandma.
I got you.
These times there, the thing's full of sugar and it's syrupy and that, but I just say yeah. And the other thing is like vegan. I get that a lot. Like vegan. I'm actually plant-based now, and
are you cured?
No.
Well, damn.
It helps it helps with some things, my digestion, and so I'm not going to sit and act like it. I personally, and everyone's diet is whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't kill my lupus. My lupus is still.
Do you know what's funny though? That advice doesn't ever come from people with your condition.
No.
Has it ever come from somebody with sickle cell that does not have sickle cell? Or is living a thriving life, hasn't had a crisis in 10 years? It never does. It comes from A, B, and C, who, I don't know where they get the information from, and it's like, no, you should just eat plants and my friends, uncles, dogs, chefs,
Because my
sister,
doctor
you know?
But you know what, there are instances where there are people where it's actually helped them immensely, and that's fine, but I do sometimes find that those people who may have had the condition, it's a bit irresponsible, because you know that everyone is different.
Yes.
So if you go and vegan helped you, because I know some people, like Jameisha for example, she actually went vegan and it helped her a lot. But, I'm not saying she's irresponsible, but it would be irresponsible to then say,
this is
what everyone
That's
the
key.
And obviously your diet has a lot to do with any condition. Your diet has a lot to do. So yes, your diet, changing your diet, going plant-based, going greener would help you.
It can.
In certain
assist you.
for some people.
But by no means does it eradicate a chronic illness
Or genetic
disorder that was inherited from both parents. And like, I got another one. My brother used to tell me to drink green tea. And that's the thing, I only drink herbal tea. So when I heard that, I was like, no.
Yeah, I'm in green tea, I'm in pain.
I'm in pain. When I'm having a crisis, it's like,
They're going to give you some kind of
green
tea.
morphine.
So, you guys look for me. Well, we don't have morphine right now, but we've got green tea.
Green tea.
Hey.
And you're just like, somebody asked me to describe the pain of like an RA flare-up.
Yeah.
And I think you as well. And we ended up coming up with the same thing. I was like, it feels like there's a knife being pushed into your joints. And the person is just doing that.
Sickle cell feels like I'm getting stabbed, bro. I'm getting shanked.
I'm getting shanked.
Repeating in the same.
At the pace of your heartbeat.
And the pace of your heartbeat is like.
And it's like
dude, and I'm like, bruh, you shouldn't laugh, but like.
And so when you're getting shanked, and there's green tea, please, madam.
Yeah, sorry, let me just pour it over my
Let me just pour it over
bloody
the wound. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And people just don't understand that.
And sprinkle some fatigue on
Please, on top of that.
Sprinkle some other stuff.
And then you
on
lose
that.
some oxygen, and you now get to an A&E where
But it's
the
not
nurse is
just
saying,
She's coming earlier.
why are you coming early? And you're like, if I jump off
Because,
this bed.
because the green tea was served first. I'm
Because
sorry.
that has to cool down.
I was hard.
Please, you gotta take your time with that tea. It's crazy.
But I feel like what has helped my journey personally was meeting other people with sickle cell.
Yes.
If you could have asked me, that's literally has been my grapevine, is meeting another person, a close friend of mine that had sickle cell. Literally, it's like she shifted my world upside down. So things I used to do, but why are you doing that? That's common to give you a crisis. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? I was like, sauna, steam, give me a hand. I'm trying to relax my joint. She's like, no, because you're dehydrated. So I'm like, oh, so that's why I go into ache. So things like connecting the dots has definitely been with communicating with other people that have my condition. That's what would you say has helped you guys' journey?
I mean, for me personally, and probably the reason why I started TSS is because of that. Like I said, I went through secondary school, primary school, first year uni, I mean anybody knowingly with sickle cell. And I met my friend with, at that point, like, oh, you have sickle? Like, yeah, like, this is what I do. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Like, what do you do? Like,
Yeah.
I got sick, so I was like, yeah, I come to hospital every day, this is what I take, this is how I drink water all the time, and stuff like, fine, like, this is like someone understands what I'm going through, and then you start to feel normal again. Like, because you felt like you've gone through your whole life feeling completely like lonely, distant, and that's obviously part of family as well. Like sometimes the family become like there's an education piece you have to go back and teach them to some degree. But then once you get friends, come like at home, I can deal with that family, but outside of home, like, what am I dealing with? Friendships are just as important, and you find even anything, like it could be someone that's 10 years older than you, same age as you, or even younger than you. It's someone that you can speak to that understands exactly what you're going through. And the idea of understanding just alleviates so much pain, because for me, and I know a lot of people that I know sickle cell is 100% linked to mental. Right? If you mentally are stressed, worried, etc., you're
it's
like
the same with flare up. A stress, any kind of stress, whatever, fibromyalgia, I should say, really, that can bring that on at any point. So again, it's with our mental, and it's a shame that that's the first thing that gets affected when we go through this. I think I just want to echo what you said in terms of, you know, having somebody around, and it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that has the same condition as you, because I think my kind of turning point when I was being treated like a lap dog and whatever else with the medication is Lowlah came to my studio where I used to work on one point, and I was telling her how I was sick. The methotrexate and my other medication was making me like it. When I think about the sickness, it makes me shudder. Like, I was so sick. I never knew that I could be sicker than what the condition was making me. Like, I didn't know the medication was going to make me sick. And Lowlah opened her mouth and she just said, you don't have to take it. Like,
why are you taking it?
She was like, why are you taking it? Tell him it.
Because the doctor gave it to me. I was like,
but PhD, I'm not, you know, like, I was like, no, but the doctor.
I was like, you are your doctor, sis.
The doctor, and it kind of reminded me, well, hold on, I actually diagnosed myself before these mofos, so why would I trust them to give me something that's having me crawling on the floor?
Oh, you ain't seen the doctor that goes on Google in front of you?
No, but now I know.
You
so
have?
it just took somebody else who, we don't have the same condition, but again, she's had this all her life, so all she had to do was tell me that. And that was enough for me to go home and be like, I'm not taking this no more, because I can't actually function with this medication.
It makes you worse.
You need to go.
There was days where I would have to decide if I wanted to be sick from rheumatoid arthritis or if I wanted to be sick from methotrexate. And it's like, I have to choose how sick I want to be, and it was enough. It was enough for me. What would you say is like helped you and where you are?
It's just similar to what you guys have said, to be honest with you. It's talking out loud and being open with it. It's hard to do that, but that has helped me a lot. I mean, similar to you, I went through a long diagnosis process being told that there's nothing wrong for a very, very long time. And then to be told, like, well, I got diagnosed with lupus actually the same year, but in March. And so another consultant who took back the diagnosis and said, actually, you have a mental health condition and you need to see a psychotherapist and you need to take antidepressants. You don't have lupus. She didn't have my notes in front of her. I'd already been told that the antibodies that were consistent with an autoimmune lupus.
She said you had a mental.
She said, you don't have lupus. And I said, well, what about the antibiotic? She goes, that comes up in some people. But I'm like, but it's consistent with the symptoms? No. You need to take an antidepressant and take psychotherapy. And so then from that point to October, so it was from April to October, I had no lupus diagnosis, even though I had one earlier. And that whole time I'm thinking, maybe she's right, like maybe.
Yeah, because then you start taking in what
they're saying.
Maybe I need to do that. And then we ended up complaining. I'm now at a very specific lupus clinic at Guy's that has a professor that spent his whole career doing it.
Yeah.
Literally, when I went to him, he went, of course it's lupus. Imagine him saying it so flippantly, like
he was
coming in to confirm something.
Y'all ain't know this.
Yeah. Know this.
I said, talk to your colleague, they're willing to put an antidepressant.
No, and this is the thing. So then now to meet other people, not just with lupus, but with arthritis or whatever, but like when I first met someone with lupus for the first time, and then they're telling me stuff like, I got this and that, and you're like, yeah, I've got that as well. Like,
You want to high five because you both have broken legs. You understand that it's crazy.
Exactly, and that was affirming because then it was like, because I'm gonna be real, it's been 6 years since diagnosis, and every time I get my checkups, I get them twice a year, I still think they're gonna tell me, no, you don't have lupus anymore.
Right.
So more and more when I speak to other people, it makes me go, no, this is real. I do have lupus, but I still struggle with accepting that I do. And every time I go and do the bloods, I'm expecting them to say, actually, do you know what? No. 6 years, yeah, I know, but actually, I think it's depression.
You know what? I'm sure you got everyone.
Yeah, but I still think that. So to meet people, like, you know, and not just with lupus, but just to meet other people with chronic illnesses and to see those consistencies, it does feel affirming. So that has helped.
Can you guys kind of tell us a bit more about what your platforms are and like what you want to do with it in future, or how you want it to run? Jameisha, you first.
No,
ladies first though.
So currently, I produce video content about chronic illnesses. And I think where I want to take it forward is, like, my whole sort of theme around what I do is just sharing the story is activism. I think, you know, not everyone is obligated to do so, but if I can facilitate that through creativity, because that's the best way that I like try to connect with people, then that's what I want to do. So a lot of the content at the beginning was just me talking because I had no one to come on, and I still want to do that as well because it helps me, but I also want to now sort of expand it to be a bit more like artsy, maybe documentary or journalism, where I can now delve into those stories that are untold. So the ones we're talking about today, why in the Black family we don't speak about it, or why, I don't know, like medical racism, medical injustice, all those particular stories where we just don't hear about them. Like, I want to hopefully expand it so those can start getting like told as well, and just hopefully like set an example that allows people to be open. They don't have to be open on Instagram, but perhaps they can start talking to their mum or dad about it. Like, I had one person DM me like, right, I never actually said my illness out loud. And stuff like that is the stuff that I hope to like allow people, even if it's just within your family, like even if it's one person. That openness really does help, as we've all said here on this table. So I just hope that what I do could facilitate that for other people.
Where can they find you? Like, where are you at?
So
plug yourself,
girl.
I'm on everything. So YouLookOkayToMe is the handle, and that's on like Facebook, Instagram. We're mainly popping on IG. That's where we party. Good. But we're trying to party more on YouTube as well. So come over there. And I've got a podcast coming soon called I'm Okay and Other Lies. So it's not just about chronic illness, but it's about like that vulnerability, speaking about some of the stuff that we try to like maybe embarrassed about or whatever. So that's what you find.
Good stuff, thanks. Chris. Plug yourself, honey.
TSS UK, so the Sounds of Sickle is obviously the bigger name, but TSS is what we kind of shorten ourselves to. So it's TSS UK _ on Twitter, TSS UK _ on Instagram. If you want to get in contact with us via email, it's thesoundofsickle@gmail.com. And in terms of what is the long-term goal for us and what I want and what the team want, it's three things. It's one, is to obviously continue the conversation around sickle cell chronic awareness. Second is, and that's the most important for me, is to encourage people of our age group and younger, like I call them the next generation of adults, to then start having these important conversations around sickle cell and other chronic illnesses that maybe inherent or other ways that once you start this conversation, it becomes a bit more normal. It's no longer taboo to say.
It saves
lives.
It saves lives.
Make it normal, because you hear about cancer, you hear about leukemia, you hear about everything
all the time.
And these are like it's like, wow, what, leukemia, cancer? So I can't know about that.
On the TV, but
then-
sickle cell.
It's like sickle cell.
Lowlah.
Always.
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 What is that? What
Exactly that.
What
The same question, like you say, what, like, oh, what's wrong with you? It's like, oh, I've got, sickle cell, I've got lupus, I've got, it's like, what's that?
Yeah,
What's
I got a
Yeah.
sigh after I say it because I know they're gonna be like, what's that?
And that, like, that's one of the things that as a long-term goal, we want to reduce that kind of that dissonance, because it stops people from talking about it. And like,
Absolutely.
I'm sick and tired of saying, oh yeah, sickle cell,
Yeah, and then it turns into a sickle, and it's just like, you should know this already
And
by
then,
now,
that's-
because it's
that's-
such a common black.
That's my biggest thing, because amongst black people who care about it the most, who deal with it the most,
Yeah.
we should be discussing it.
We should be discussing it.
I shouldn't be relying on any other race to care the same way that my race should be. Like, and that's it's unfortunate, but it's the harsh reality.
Yeah, it
100%.
is.
So
So-
that's it. I think that's the two.
I mean, like for me, I always talk about like changes I want to see. I know we already have Sickle Cell Society UK, but I feel like that's the only out of all the people that I feel had sickle cell in the UK. I feel like it shouldn't just be that one group. It should be more. So I feel like, and like Chris and I has already spoken about the mental health aspect of it. I feel changes I want to see. I want to see more brands like TSS coming up. More. Things to encourage events and discussions around this. I want to see more companies come out. Those are the changes I feel like I want to see when it comes to sickle cell.
So guys, if you could give one piece of advice to either somebody dealing with a condition or even family members who have someone dealing with a condition, what would it be? Or you put yourself in a position before you know what you know now, what would have been the one piece of advice that you'd have been so happy to have?
For me personally, I think I spent long periods of my life battling with the idea of I have sickle cell. And I think as soon as I said that, well, this is me, and I said, do you know what I mean? Like, it became a little bit more, it became easier to have day-to-day conversations, it became easier to live life. There was a bit more positivity because I know this isn't going to go away, so I might as well just kind of do what I can and live life. Do you know what I mean? Like, word to Banter, but I can't kill myself.
I'm glad you got that. Don't come and kill ourselves. It's so true.
I should live.
Just live your life. You've got to live your best life.
100% mantra.
I think I would say allowing myself to actually be soft and delicate in a way, especially as black women, like strong black women, strong black women. You can be strong, but you can also be soft at the same time.
Yes.
And I was stopping myself from getting help because early in my condition I was like, I've got lupus, but I'm just gonna pull through and just gonna da. And then actually I realised that wow, I can actually accept some disability benefit, or I can accept disabled student allowance, or I can accept these things because they were available to me. I just wasn't taking them because of me.
Yeah.
And then when I started taking them, I was like, oh,
This is easier now.
wow, this has made it so much easier. Like, the parking badge means
Yeah.
I don't have. Wow,
Exactly. Wow, yeah.
Why wasn't I doing that before? And that's
Yeah.
because I was setting a standard on me being like so strong, but I'm allowing
You
myself
don't
to be
need it.
soft and gentle so that I can get the help that I need. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in being soft.
There's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Yeah, but I wouldn't, and now I still struggle with it,
Still
but
struggling,
getting better, getting better at saying, hey, actually, can you do this for me, please? I'm really struggling, and that's difficult, but you have to have compassion for yourself in order to even make that first step. So
100%.
I would say that.
I think for me, a big one for me is education outside of what you were told in hospital.
Yes.
I just remember on diagnosis, I was told that this is what the condition was, and this is the medication that they were going to test. And then I was then sent away, and then I just kind of relied on them to tell me how I was going to feel. And it was only until I started educating myself that I was like, oh, actually, I can just take less of this and do more exercise, more of this and more of that, and it was going to help with my side effects. I think you also need to educate yourself, even when they do give you these medications, on what the medication actually does to you. Because I feel like my sickness began after my diagnosis. I was obviously sick before, but I got sicker after leaving the hospital and being told that I had RA. So I think it's so key to educate yourself beyond what the hospital and doctors try and tell you.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I kind of encourage people to do intelligent research, smart research for your condition. So you're not going to have the final diagnosis for your condition
Yeah.
because you do need the help of medical professionals sometimes. It's like a team though.
It's a
Like
teamwork,
You
yeah.
bring the research as well. We shouldn't have to do all that, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I usually be like, here's my papers, I did this homework, let's have a chat. I see it as a partnership rather than this hierarchy where they're telling me everything. Just as you're saying, education's important.
That is me. I feel like you're a doctor. That doesn't mean you should have a God complex. And
No.
it's you can't tell me what's best for my life because it's me that's going to come back and tell you, well, no, doctor, actually, this medicine gives me whatever.
Yeah.
And it is test and go. Like some things, anti-sickness, because a medication causes nausea. I'm allergic to the main anti-sickness everyone takes.
my God.
So if you see a pattern in something, you can go back and say, oh, well, I've noticed this is happening. I've noticed this is happening. And they can be like, oh, well, that's not good. Maybe we should change. You know, it's a team.
Yeah.
You can't, it's not one or the other.
Yes.
You know, you need each other. Yeah.
And if they're not if they're not working with you, see someone else.
See, ask for someone else.
Yes.
Change your doctor, change your consultant, get the help and the right support that you feel is right for you.
That is one thing that I think, being like from creating this research, I've seen a lot is that people are having their doctors push back at them and say, no, this is A, B, and C, you need to do A, B, and C because it works for A, B, and C. It's like, well, maybe I'm doing
Yeah.
Maybe I'm D.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's like maybe I'm D. It's not going to work for A, B, and C. It works for them, but I'm D. And
Doesn't work
the
for me.
idea of one sweeping set of medicine that works for everybody the exact same way is ludicrous to me. It's honestly, doesn't make sense.
Well, hopefully someone else can, you know, listen to this and know that, you know, it's a whole community and it affects a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
I'm hoping that somebody's going to watch this and understand that, yes, they're black, they're young, but, you know, there are other people out there like us, unfortunately or fortunately. And so, you know, reach out, speak to somebody because that's when you'll truly be able to understand what's going on with your life, basically.
yeah.
So I just want to say again, thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you
coming
guys so
out
much
and
for
just
coming.
helping the cause and untackling these topics.
Yes.
And
Yes.
unpacking. And I think we're doing individually. We're doing, you know, the best that we can do for people in our position.
Yeah.
Giving them a voice for so many who may be, for whatever reason, shy, scared, shamed,
Lonely,
you know. And so I think we're on the right track. And these conditions are serving a purpose.
Yeah.
And we're living out our purposes.
Yeah.
So.
No.
Thank you
so much,
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, so appreciate it.
Yeah.
So earlier today we asked our guests to give us some pointers on their words to live by. So I've got Chris's words here and I'm going to read them out. So Chris says, live your life to the fullest. And then in commas he says, I can't come and kill myself.
Period. Well, that's a good one. I can't come and kill myself.
Shout out.
And Jameisha said, be honest and kind with yourself. Treat yourself with love and warmth. Allow yourself the space to be soft.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's
really
good.
good. I like that.
Allow yourself to be soft.
So thank you guys so much for watching the first ever episode of the Taboo Table. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with everybody.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
So,